I think the greatest fear you face is yourself. Look, just let that quote sink in for a second. We all have dreams, right? But as Kobe Bryant pointed out, it is incredibly scary to actually look at that dream and say, okay, I want that. And why is that? Because if you put your absolute heart and soul into something and you give it literally everything you have and you still fail, how are you going to feel about yourself? That raw perspective, the fear of giving it everything and falling short, is the true starting line for greatness. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most legendary mindsets in sports history. Together, we're going to break down exactly what drove Kobe Bryant, using his very own words to see how a relentless work ethic completely transformed into a profound philosophy on life.
Here is our roadmap for today. We'll be covering defining the Mamba Mentality, playing the long game, the science of obsession, elevating the team, balancing family, and finally, the true meaning of success. Basically, we're tracing the evolution of his mindset from tactical childhood strategies all the way to his deep, late-career philosophy.
All right, kicking things off with part 1, defining the Mamba Mentality, the infinite quest. When you hear the phrase Mamba Mentality, what actually pops into your head? For a lot of folks, it's hitting crazy game-winning shots or having this ruthless competitive streak. But the reality is actually so much more foundational than that. Kobe defined it simply as trying to be the best version of yourself. It's just a constant, infinite quest to become slightly better every single day. And for Kobe, this didn't just magically start when he made the NBA. This infinite quest started at age 2, shooting on a little Nerf hoop at his house. It was fueled by constant curiosity, going to his dad's practices, observing, and relentlessly asking questions. It was never about a final destination. It was always about the daily pursuit.
Moving right along to Section 2. Playing the long game, strategy over ego.
So how does a kid actually apply an infinite quest? Well, we have to look at a critical, strategic decision he made when he was just 13 years old. Think about standard summer basketball. Most kids naturally play to their strengths because, let's face it, they just want to win the game right in front of them. But Kobe's strategy? He completely ignored the immediate win. Instead, he used those games to strictly work on his weaknesses, like developing his left hand, his post game, his pull-up jumper. He wasn't trying to be better than you at 13. He wanted to be better than you when the chips were really on the line years down the road.
And what was the payoff for that kind of delayed gratification? Fast forward to when he was 17 years old. His game was completely well-rounded. Meanwhile, he looked around and noticed that the exact same peers he played against at 13 were still relying on the exact same tricks they used 4 years earlier. Because they chased the meaningless summer win, they stopped growing. Kobe chased the skill, and he totally left them in the dust.
Which brings us to Section 3, the science of obsession. The world is a library.
As Kobe transitioned into the pros, that childhood strategy evolved into what can only be described as the science of obsession. His work ethic became incredibly fast, intense, and wildly calculated. Just think about this number. 1,000. That is the sheer volume of his obsession. During the summer, he would make, and I mean make, not just take, 1,000 shots a day. And it wasn't just physical work either. Before he'd even go to sleep, he would lie in bed visualizing playing for the Lakers, downloading the images into his brain over and over until he visualized scoring 120 points.
But here's the catch. Volume without purpose, that's just cardio. The absolute crucial point is right here in this quote. It weren't just shots. It were shots that you saw in that game. These were hyper-specific, highly visualized game situations. He would practice coming out of the corner, going to the pinch post, mastering the exact footwork off a screen thousands and thousands of times. So when the actual game happened, he was literally just executing a sequence his body and brain had already lived. And his obsession? It extended way beyond the basketball court. He treated the entire world like it was his personal library. Sure, he studied the 45-degree angles and the geometry of the court, and of course he studied his opponent's emotions. But he also looked way outside his industry. He studied musical conductors to understand momentum shifts in an arena. He studied actors to see how they got into character. He even studied nature to see how he could steal its movements for his own game. Let me ask you, what outside industries are you studying to get better at your own craft?
All right, part 4, elevating the team, the burden of leadership.
As his individual greatness was completely cemented, his role had to shift.
He realized his responsibility wasn't just to himself anymore. He now carried the huge burden of emotionally driving his teammates to be the absolute best versions of themselves every single day. And he had a very deliberate method for preventing a team from folding under pressure. Step 1, you have to know your teammates individually and personally. Why? Because you need step 2, finding exactly which nerve to touch to motivate them. And then step 3 is where the magic really happens. Imagine the team is totally exhausted from playing back-to-back games. Kobe's goal was to make that random Tuesday practice harder and more intense than a Game 7. Because if practice is harder than Game 7, the actual Game 7 becomes easy. If it's not, well, that's when teams capitulate.
Because he held this unbelievable standard, his recruiting pitch to other players was famously blunt. He would literally tell them, "You want first place? Come play with me. You want second place? Go somewhere else." He was strictly looking for fellow obsessives, players willing to constantly look in the mirror, self-assess, and challenge themselves to do things they honestly didn't even think were possible.
Section 5. Balancing family and greatness. Leading by example. So, what happens when the game ends? Well, this relentless drive didn't just magically switch off when he walked through his front door, but it did take on a much more intimate, personal form. Kobe believed that if you want your kids to accomplish their goals, you can't just lecture them, you have to show them. On the court, the guy was famous for playing through the flu or playing with a 102-degree fever, but he realized he couldn't use that physical exhaustion as an excuse at home. If he came home dead tired from a grueling practice and his daughter wanted to go swimming or play at the park, he couldn't say, "I'm too tired." As he put it, that wouldn't be fair to his kids. If it was a game, he'd suck it up and play, right? So he took that exact same championship energy and applied it to being a dad.
To really anchor just how dedicated he was, there were times he'd be playing an away game, hop on a plane to fly all the way back just so he wouldn't miss a daughter's birthday, and then immediately fly right back to rejoin the team on the road. He refused to miss a thing, leading his family by the exact same example he set on the hardwood.
And this standard was entirely shared by his wife, Vanessa. Kobe constantly noted that being a stay-at-home mother is literally the hardest job there is, and her immense attention to detail set a parallel example for their kids. She was just as competitive as he was. She'd tell him straight up, if you're going to be out here training 8 hours a day, if you're going to spend 9 months out of the year away from your family, you better win the championship.
Which brings us to our final part, Section 6, the true meaning of success, passing the torch.
This is where we see the ultimate philosophical evolution of Kobe's mindset. We get to watch the intense competitor mature into a genuinely wise mentor. As a kid, his singular focus was simple, just be the best ever. But as he got older, he realized that simply winning championships, even if you win 20 of them, is actually kind of superficial, because fans will always debate who the real best is. So his goal shifted to helping his teammates grow. And then, as he transitioned into a retired legend, it shifted one last time to its final form, inspiring others to find themselves.
Kobe called this the ultimate championship. True success isn't some shiny trophy that just gathers dust on a shelf. It is using your own passion to inspire somebody else to create their passion, who then passes it on to the next person. That is a legacy that outlasts any banner raised in an arena. It's this beautiful, infinite loop of inspiration.
And he left us with this incredibly powerful warning. Protect your dreams. Protect your imagination. Kobe firmly believed that as we are born into this world and we start to grow up, we often go backwards. We start letting society put governors on our ability to dream just to seem more responsible or realistic. But the real secret to greatness isn't just about aggressively pushing past your physical limits, it's about protecting the absolute purity of your imagination from a world that is constantly trying to shrink it. So, I want to leave you with this final, provocative thought to take away from the Mamba mentality. Are you actively pushing beyond your limitations, or have you allowed the world to place governors on your imagination? True greatness requires you to protect that dream, study the world around you, and relentlessly work to become just a slightly better version of yourself today than you were yesterday. Keep pursuing